Hello and welcome to my channel where we discuss all things. Lately, my channel is mostly neurodivergent things. I have been really missing for a while, mostly because it's winter here in the Northeast, and with winter comes a lot of additional tasks for me. With the wood stove and dealing with the snow removal and everything, it's just more demands, and it does drain my energy, or I have to focus on those things. There's just like so many things with like extra clothing and all this stuff, so I haven't been able to sit down and really make a post like I want to. I don't make money off of this, so it's not my source of income, but I do it just when I feel like I have something to talk about and I wanted to share. And I have had something to talk about for a while that I wanted to share, but I just haven't had the time to like sit down and really organize my thoughts and just put this together. But I did want to talk about something that I've been thinking about for a while, and I know it's something that is important to the topic of discussion around neurodivergence, and that is rejection sensitive dysphoria, or RSD for short. So that is a term that was coined by this psychologist named William Dodson. And if you do any searches on it, you'll always find it linked to ADHD. That is because his research was in people with ADHD. I don't think that, from my perspective, it's really a thing that is only linked to ADHD, but I do know anecdotally, talking to people and from what the literature says, that it is highly prevalent in people with ADHD. So what is rejection sensitive dysphoria? Well, the definition as it is read, which I don't really like the term dysphoria at all. It goes in the same bucket for me as disorder. Dysphoria kind of meaning that the connotation is that it's not real, but basically it's RSD is characterized by real or perceived sense of rejection that can include intense emotional or physical pain. And so I think when we talk about this, William Dodson's research showed that up to I think it was 99%, but it's really, really high if it's not that, ADHDers experience this. It's not in the DSM-5. I don't know if it's going to be included in the next round of the DSM, but my opinions about the DSM maybe not relevant for this discussion, but I do feel like it's more based on observable things that other people observe, and not firsthand accounts of the cluster of experiences that would be included in these terms. So what I would say is I think I would put in a plug here for a recent podcast that I listened to, and it was a podcast specifically about RSD. It was done in multi-part series, and it was a podcast by Divergent Minds, and it's two ADHDers, so autistic ADHDers, that have basically discussions about their minds and their brains and the way things work, and bring in research that supports it or talks about it. What it does look like to me is that there are sort of different flavors of RSD, if you will, and I believe that people that are more prevalent autistic or more prevalent ADHDers have kind of different ways of experiencing this phenomenon of rejection, and it manifests in different ways, and it is the things that trigger it are different, but in the different groups, autistic, ADHDers. If you're an ADHDer, if you are autistic and also are an ADHDer, you may experience both types of or flavors of RSD, but me being mostly prevalent autistic, I don't experience much of the ADHD type. So, but I do know people that do, and I have people that have talked to me about their experience in. So I'll talk a little bit about that, what I see about the differences. And if you, I think I want to start by, like, I really don't agree with the characterization that it's perceived rejection. I think that whether it be a full-on intentional rejection of the other person's being or ideas or whatever, or presence, or, you know, meant to be not harmful, but still communicating sort of like a distancing, that the rejection or the term, it does make it clear that whatever is happening is not something that the other person wants to happen. So I don't feel like it's a perception, although I think that the response to that communication, whether it be overt or indirect, could make things look dysphoric, but I think it's more just a spectrum of that and of the response volume and intensity back to the outside or the other person, or even like swallowed internally and what it feels like internally. So there, in the literature, it says that people that experience RSD have low self-esteem or poor self-image, and have emotional dysregulation issues. And I think this is why it's linked to ADHD, because there's a whole lot of stuff in regards to emotional regulation that has to do with ADHD. So, I mean, I think I got to start with ADHD first, because that's where it's most talked about and most of the literature is around, and then I'll tell you about the autistic experience, and that's going to be kind of my first-hand experience, but I do know that other autistic people do have the same type of relationship with RSD. So if you are an ADHDer and you have a tendency over the course of your life, basically ADHDers are really curious people. They want to ask a lot of questions. They want to learn. That's like their driving force. Like finding more dopamine is really the driver. It's why people that are ADHDers tend to be creative. They tend to be really fast thinkers. They can come up with new ideas, and the part that is challenging is that they want to share that, and they want to talk about that, and they want to ask questions, and they don't always wait for a time period that feels like at the appropriate time period to express these ideas, these thoughts, ask these questions. And so it can come across like this person is chaotic. But I would like to say that I think that it's just more intense curiosity and enthusiasm, and maybe with a tendency to not be able to hold on to that very long, because one of the characteristics of being an ADHDer is kind of, your brain is going so fast, and it's like jumping to the next thought, that the thought that had then kind of like gets dropped to go to the next thing. It's like kind of the nature of how the brain wants to work. It's like wants to work fast, and it wants to churn through different ideas. So what that looks like on the outside is maybe somebody just speaking out of turn or interrupting. And this happens, from a young age. And we live in a society that is very structured around normative social structures and hierarchies. So these ADHDers may not be following that, and they get reprimanded or like spoken negatively to when they're very young people, and it doesn't feel good, and that stuff builds up over time, and all those little micro aggressions towards them do give them the message that there is something inherently wrong or flawed with them, and they feel that at a core deep level. So when they say they have low self-esteem, I want to be able to speak to that and speak to the source of that. It's not like they just went along in life with no reasoning, having these like negative perceptions of themselves. This has been reinforced by the outside world. If there wasn't people saying or acting towards them negatively, they wouldn't have. So RSD seems to be like kind of a trauma response to living in a harsh environment. And there's nothing inherently wrong with the person. So I like to flip this, because oftentimes when you look up these things, especially when you look up the DSM-5 or you're like researching these things, it really does put the focus on the individual and the things that are wrong with them. And really, this is a systemic problem. So I wanted to say that. So with ADHDers, what I see and what I've heard is that this is felt on like a physical level, and it impacts the nervous system that way. So if, for instance, like in a social situation, this person just like blurts out something or makes a joke really funny, and they think it's really funny, but the rest of the people don't, or there's like a side glance, they pick that up. They're really good at picking up a lot of information, and they'll pick up negative commentary or looks or things like that, and it will impact them very physically. And so that will trigger like an emotional nervous system dysregulation. And if they don't address that nervous system dysregulation, it can continue. And what I do hear from ADHDers is that they may experience these events, and they sort of replay them over and over and over again in their head. I hear a lot of ADHDers, when they go to sleep at night, part of the reason why they may struggle with sleep, although there's sleep is a whole other issue, but there are components of replaying events in their head and micro-analyzing every single interaction, everything that was said, every comment, every look, every glance, every gesture, and replaying that over and over, and experiencing that nervous system dysregulation continuously. In their, that's like a fight, flight, freeze, fawn response that there will be in, and that will continue until they're able to sort of find a way to calm their nervous system down. And that may be substances. There's a lot of correlation between ADHDers and substance abuse, or it might be maybe food, any other kind of sort of focus on something that will allow them to regulate their nervous system. Any addiction or anything like that. With more insight, you can choose different mechanisms to calm your nervous system, but you will require something to regulate your nervous system. So the other thing that I hear a lot from ADHDers is that they will experience these instances. It's not like they have a one-time thing happen and then they process it and they don't think about it long term, or it decreases in impact. I hear a lot of the time that there are things that happened years ago, even from childhood, that will be recalled and thought of. That same experience will occur at the same level of intensity that it occurred in the initial incident. And so there is a persistent impact of the RSD over long spans of time. And I feel like when I have spoken to ADHDers that this is like a large part of their existence. And it's kind of, if you think about it, if you're someone that has less ability to not say things, or less ability to like hold back some things or think through some things that really excite you, that you might experience these microaggressions regularly, daily, and many times a day. I mean, over the course of a lifetime, many thousands of microaggressions. So that is hugely cumulative and very impactful. I think maybe I'm going to talk about like what you can do about it, or what you can do about it for yourself at the end. And I'm going to switch to talking about maybe more the autistic experience. So for me, and I think other autistic people, I don't experience it quite the same way. I don't experience it like in the moment at all. And I think there's reasons for this. I don't experience rejection sensitive dysphoria when like an incident is happening. I don't feel like that is relevant to me. I don't feel like even after a social event like that, and that day or that evening, that I might do this kind of thing where I'm microanalyzing everybody's expression or what they said. I might remember, but because I have I will miss those things, those social cues, because I can't look at a lot of people, and two, like I don't know how to relate a lot of those gestures to emotions or socially communicated, indirect social communication of things. It's not something that I have. So I guess I know with ADHDers going into a social event, they're already thinking about what people are going to say or do, or how they're going to react, and maybe have like some resistance to going into a social event because of that. For me, I don't have resistance to social events because of that. I have resistance to social events because of the sensory things, not because of the social consequences of things. So I will go to a social event without like thinking about that or analyzing it in the moment at all. I don't have the capability to analyze things like that in the moment. But I guess what I do know that I experience consequences, I'll say, for things not going socially well. And usually they come as a surprise to me. Whereas I think with ADHDers, they're not really a surprise when they get negative feedback. But for me, it's almost like it kind of comes like out of the blue, which is sort of even more disconcerting, I guess, because like I have no knowledge that this was like anything that was happening. So for me, I will find out about this when somebody responds to me at a scale that I didn't anticipate. And it always most often catches me off guard. And so I have learned just through logic that certain things can cause other things to happen, which I don't think in a straight up ADHD person that is really lost on them. I think that they make that connection, but I literally have to think hard about that, or somebody has to tell me that, which I don't know. I still feel like I would want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt if they didn't respond in the way that I, like in a moment, would expect them to, instead of assuming things. But that being said, that is my biggest thing with rejection sensitive dysphoria as an autistic person. It's the fear of being misunderstood. It's not the fear of, social digs or anything like that, or I'm trying to think of how to describe it, what the differences. But it's not like I have a fear of getting dirty looks or things like that, or negative commentary, or I guess it's because I just don't have the ability or really am very skilled in picking that up, so I haven't really tried, and so I don't fear that stuff. But the being misunderstood is a big one for me. So the way that I experience rejection sensitive dysphoria, I guess, is preparing ahead of time that I will be misunderstood. So what this looks like in practice is I think what they call scripts, and running through scenarios in my head ahead of time to like think about what I'm going to do. So I will ahead of time go through like 5 different scenarios that might occur and kind of plan for that. Part of that is like difficulty with changing plans quickly, but there's a lot of part of it where I go through what people might say or have conversations in my head ahead of time. I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to do it like as a younger person quite a lot. And if somebody does give me feedback that I did something socially inappropriate, that is pretty awful for me because it's that like being misunderstood. My intentions are, the majority of the time is like so I don't want to I want to say my intentions are usually like very not wanting to cause any harm to anybody. So when it does happen and I didn't know about it, I feel really bad. And so that is kind of I think that what I experience as rejection sensitive dysphoria. On the plus side, I don't recall these things years down the road. I guess I don't have that, like that thing that most ADHDers say, where they have the same thing in intensity and years down the road. And as far as like physical manifestations of it, I can feel really bad. And like if somebody says, I can experience like shame kind of feelings. I have in the past from like, because if I learn that I hurt somebody, or I like hurt somebody's feelings or something by the way that I feel bad about that. But it's also like I have to really, um, it has to be kind of, sometimes somebody would explain it to me and I would not understand it, like why what I did was wrong or something, or perceived as wrong, and I have to work that out, logically, not, or like kind of get into that space of that other person. And sometimes I can't get into that space of that other person because it really is not something that I've experienced before, or it really makes no sense. And in that case, I kind of just disregard it, I guess. I have a more tendency to do that. And so I think that is like sort of a protective thing with more autistic people, is that I don't think we tend to always are able to feel bad about the thing that we did if it doesn't make sense to us, like as far as our empathy goes. If we saw it happen and we did something and somebody like immediately had a response, or they were crying or angry or whatever, like that immediate and right around me feedback would make me definitely respond differently than when it's explained to me and I have to use like my cognitive empathy about why something didn't go well. That's not a very strong skill of mine, I guess. So it would need to be more like explained. And I probably would get there, but it would need more detail. I would need more detail. Whereas I think that an ADHDer would have more skill in that area. And if you're a combined type, then I guess you get part of both of it. I guess you get like the feelings of being misunderstood, and also the feelings of just feeling like you're like a bad person, or like that you're not acceptable or something. I think ADHDers, instead of like being misunderstood, it's more like you're too much. Yeah, I think it's mostly you're too much, or you're like generally a chaotic person or something. I think they get these feelings of shame that would come from that. Whereas my experience is more just being misunderstood. I guess that's what, I don't know. I'm sure there's more to this, and I'd be like so wanting to hear from anybody that had commentary about either of those things. So as far as like what can help, I really feel like there are some things that are used, some types of therapy that are used for people with borderline personality disorder, and I can see why like our severe RSD, severe rejection sensitive dysphoria, might look like BPD, because you might see really intense mood lability over like small things, but I don't know. I mean, there's like a lot of BPD stuff that I feel like really is probably going to be disconstructed in the future. And it may be, more related to neurodivergent people that have significant trauma versus like its own category, which it is right now. But anyways, so I just got to go back to where I was. Yeah, things that help. So dialectic behavior therapy, DBT. For BPD, it's used, and it's like, the concept is called wise mind, and basically it's to try to come up with, like, you don't want to reject the emotional response or the emotional feeling that comes up when you experience some RSD type stuff. You want to, like, let that be there, but then also develop skills to have, like, systematically write down exactly what happened, and then or write down or go in your head what happened and what the logical response would be, or like pulling out the emotion, and then what is the intent is to integrate those two. And I know that DBT is done sometimes in group therapy, because getting other people's perspectives can help from that. But I think you could probably do it by yourself if you've worked a lot on like taking some of the shame out of and the weight out of the stuff that you feel when those happen. So I think because with RSD there's a lot of negative self-talk, or like negative talk that goes along with it, or can then go along with it, that I think counteracting that with a lot of positive talk could really help. And I think that generally a lot of positive talk in general is a good thing. And I know that that is kind of really hard for some people. And so instead of saying things like, I think when I first started doing positive talk, it was really uncomfortable because it felt false, and it just actually felt worse when I was saying things I didn't believe. So instead of saying like, I'm going to have a great day today, you know, you're a capable person or something like that, I'd be like, maybe today will be a good day. And I was like, maybe I'm not an incapable, maybe I am a capable person. So putting like this sort of like, maybe things will work out, you know, instead of things will work out, and you feel like this intense like dread and doom is like, things will work out, oh my god, it doesn't feel like things are going to work out. It's like, maybe things are going to be okay. And it kind of softens it, and I feel like it kind of pulls some of like the intensity from the like demand of doing things a certain way. I feel like for me that is relevant. So I think working up to more positive talk is a good thing. And I think you can phase that. I think you can do it with like small things and not be like, maybe you're gonna get, you know, a really good grade in school, or maybe you're gonna be the superstar employee. It's like, maybe I'm gonna make my coffee right today. Maybe I'm gonna enjoy 5 minutes of my morning. You know, maybe there's something about these small things that are going on in my day that I really like, and maybe it's okay to feel like that's enough. You know, I think that we kind of get into our heads about these massive changes and these massive things that we want to do, when really I feel like this is so cumulative. As you think about when we talk about RSD and rejection sensitive dysphoria, and I talk to you about ADHDers and how many negative messages that you get over a lifetime, or, you know, over a span of time, that those build up over time. So if you're going to counteract all of that, it's going to take time, and it's going to be, you know, a continuous thing that you work on. And it's not going to be like one day it's going to be all fixed. You might feel like no feelings of rejection for a period of time, and then all of a sudden something happens and it brings it back. It doesn't mean that you went back to the beginning. It just means that like that there's more things that you can learn about yourself, and the things that maybe, you know, you want to focus on, things like that. So I don't know. I think that this is all quite normal, is what I want to say. I feel like all of this stuff that we deal with as neurodivergent people is a result of trying to put ourselves into systems and places and being with people that maybe aren't the best for us. So that's another thing, is like, really be selective about who you choose to be around. You really don't need to subject yourself to any people that are going to not fully accept you. And I think that takes a lot of time to get to that place where you're like, in a place where you're like, I'd rather just, not be around these people because I don't feel comfortable. Your nervous system needs to feel safe and accepted for you to thrive and for you to grow. And you can't expect that you'll be able to work on these things if you keep putting yourself into situations that feel really threatening to your nervous system. So that is something that is sounds very easy to do, and is also very hard in practice, because you do end up potentially, losing connections and things, but it ends up being in the long run better for you, because you feel better on the whole every day. So yeah, I guess take care of your nervous systems. When they fire their messages to you that you are unsafe and you should listen to it. And you don't need to do anything about it, but you do need to listen to what it's telling you. And that's all I have to say. And thanks for listening. And I hope that this was helpful at all. And please, please, please comment if you have something to say or you want to share. I try to get back to all of you if I can. I know I'm not always timely with it, and I apologize for that, but I do appreciate you being here and watching, and thank you, and I hope you have a great day.